the radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Monday, March 30th. I hope everybody is doing well. Ready for another show, another news update from the Yaron Brook Show. And just to remind you, tonight, 7 p.m. East Coast time, 7, not 8, 7 p.m. East Coast time, we'll have Amish Adalja on to talk all things immunology. Well, we'll talk first about the HHS, we'll talk about RFK, we'll talk about vaccines, but we'll also talk about just generally FDA. But I'm also interested in his views on biological warfare and whether the United States is prepared. And there's a ton to talk to Amos, so hopefully you guys will join and have lots of questions, and join us. All right. Also remind you that if you ask questions using the Super Chat, you get to shape the show because I get to talk about the things you want me to talk about. I was going to do a show yesterday, and then my wife said, take the day off, so I took the day off. She was right. I needed a day off. I needed it not so much off as I needed a day to catch up on all the stuff that I had. I'm still not caught up. I'm still far from caught up. Anyway, it was good to have one day off, but I missed you guys. Yeah. All right, let's jump in. Donald Trump this morning, 7-something a.m., tweeted the following. The United States is in serious discussions with, all caps, this is all caps, a new and more reasonable regime, now small caps, to end our military operations in Iran. Great progress has been made, but if for any reason a deal is not shortly reached, which it probably will be, and if the Hormuz Straits is not immediately open for business, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, and Karg Island, and possibly all desalination plants, which we have purposefully not yet touched. This will be in retribution for our many soldiers and others that Iran has butchered and killed over the old regime's 47-year reign of terror. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So this typical Donald Trump making announcements over Twitter and roiling the world. But let's take this. Let's break this apart. So the first sentence is, the United States has a serious discussion with a new and more reasonable regime. I mean, I don't know what he's talking about. The regime in place still has a supreme leader. Maybe he's injured, maybe he's not involved, but structurally, it still has a supreme leader. That is a mullah, right? The person Trump is supposedly negotiating with is the Speaker of the Iranian parliament, who is a hardline Iranian who is, being a hardliner forever and being a part of the Khomeini was the first guy, Khamenei was the second guy, Khomeini, small difference, but it's a difference, regime forever, so he's not anybody new. And it's not clear this guy who supposedly is negotiating with the United States has any power, because, I mean, the reality is that he is not where the power really lies. The power seems to lie with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and that is run by another guy who is a hardliner. And indeed, nothing about this new and more reasonable regime is, nothing about it is less IRGC. And IRGC plus mullahs are the old regime. And right now the regime is IRGC plus mullahs. Now the balance might have shifted. Used to be more mullahs, less IRGC. Now it seems more IRGC, less mullahs. IRGC might be less religious and therefore more open to surviving. It's hard to tell. But these people are not reasonable. They're not rational. They're not moderate. They're the same old regime that always existed. He's negotiating. In the meantime, reports are that he constantly gets contradictory responses from the Iranians because the Iranians don't know what to respond, right? He's given them 15 conditions. They're not going to accept those. Some are willing to compromise on some of them. Others are not willing to compromise on anything. Others are willing to compromise on other stuff. There's a power struggle going on. Basically, the entire old hierarchy is gone. There's a new hierarchy, but my point is the new hierarchy is just the same regime as old, just new people. And the Speaker of the House is from the old regime, he's not new. There's a power struggle going on. It's probably true that Ahmed Vahidi, who is the head of the IRGC, the new head of the IRGC, because the old head of the IRGC was killed with Khamenei on day one of the war. This is the new guy. But this new guy has been part of the regime since the revolution. And he's old Islamist. Is part of this regime forever. And they brought him out of retirement to head up the IRGC. But it's not fresh blood that might be moderate and wanting to move to Toronto. Indeed, there's a lot of young people in the IRGC who you might be able to cut a deal because they are going to be more pragmatic. They probably joined the IRGC less for ideological reasons than for financial reasons. One of the things about the IRGC that's really, really important to remember is that they run a big chunk of the economy. And as a consequence, and a lot of smuggling. And therefore, they get a lot of revenue from electricity, from oil production, from gas. They get a lot of revenue. They're self-funding. They own industry. And therefore, there might be younger people who want the money but don't necessarily care about the religious stuff. No, I'm not thinking about the Atesh. I don't know who's thinking about the Atesh. Anyway, this is the IRGC, and who knows what's going on inside the bunkers deep down as they communicate, how good that communication is, and what they communicate, how much panic there is. There were many reports this weekend of real conflicts between the president of Iran, who claims he has tried to resign several times and his resignation was not accepted by the Supreme Leader, and the IRGC, because again, they are in shambles. Their leadership is being eviscerated. They maybe don't even know how bad things are, how much of their economy is being devastated, their industry is crushed, their military. They might not know how bad it is. The IRGC young people could very well be moderates. Could very well be moderates who are in it for the money, versus the old guard who run the IRGC today are ideologues. The young people, probably not. I mean, even the old guard, there was pictures after the June War. There were pictures of one of the IRGC's generals who survived, married off his daughter. And there was video from the wedding. And there were nobody who wore hijab. Everybody it looked like a Western wedding. I mean, a lot of these people are, they play the fanatic religionists when it's convenient, and they are in it for the money and in it for the power the rest of the time. Even within the upper echelon of the RGC, there's a mixture of ideologues and non-ideologues. Remember, it's power and it's money. So there is a lot of infighting right now. There's a lot of battles. This is why I think the regime is very, very weak. This is why I don't get negotiating with them. What is the point of negotiating with them? They're not going to accept all 15 of Trump's requirements. Just do what's necessary to pull them down. Now, Trump is threatening to destroy their power generating plants, to destroy their oil wells, to destroy, not take over, destroy Carg Island, and even go after desalination. And I'm willing to bet anybody on here who's willing, he's not going to do any of that. I mean, partially because, and you can see it today in the oil market, right? I mean, he announced this morning. Since he announced this, oil has been on a trajectory up because the last thing the oil market wants is Iranian oil off the market. So it's one thing if the U.S. controls Iranian oil, but Iranian oil off the market means a lot less oil, prices going up, and prices are already reflecting that. Crude West Texas oil is up to $104. Last night it was under 100. And, it's been, on Wednesday, it was 90. So it's gone up $15 over the last few days because of fear that Trump is going to eviscerate the oil industry. And of course, one of the things that the market is worried about is not just the disappearance of Iranian oil. They're also worried about the disappearance of, the Iranians attacking Saudi Arabia and UAE and Kuwait and maybe even Iraq, all of that oil. And all of the Persian Gulf in flames. And basically, the amount of oil coming out has been eliminated. So a lot of fear out there right now, and Trump is not helping with that fear because he shouldn't be negotiating. He shouldn't be threatening things he's not going to do. I like the idea of retribution for the many soldiers and others that Iran has been butchering and killing over the old regimes, not this regime, God forbid, the old regimes, 47 years of reign of terror. Notice that everybody in the new regime was part of the old regime that killed all those American soldiers. So, he, as usual, he's just lying and making stuff up. But he's not going to obliterate any of that. I mean, he might take the island. He might try to take the oil fields. He might do a bunch of different things. We'll talk about that. But he's not obliterating the oil fields. He wouldn't even, Israel just attacked the gas fields, which were almost all for domestic production. And he freaked out. So it just is not happening, and the threats are not helping. The threats are just making it so that the markets, the stock market opened up today and is ending down as oil heads towards, I guess now, well into the 104, 100, yeah. Stabilizes at around 104. Look, you can't have a deal with the devil. You can't negotiate with religious, militant fanatics. The only thing they understand is force. And what you need to do is systematically undermine their capabilities of projecting force. And they're fundamentally, there are three things that need to happen. Three things that need to happen here. One, the U.S. has to open the Straits of Hormuz. It's stunning that it still doesn't seem to be happening. It needs to at least lay out a plan for how it's going to happen. It seemingly has now international forces that are willing to join in opening the Hormuz Straits. Do it. Do it. Take the Hormuz Straits and you control the oil going to China or anybody else. So It's hard to. Yep. I'm just reading. There's always breaking news while we're talking. So open up the Hormuz Straits. If you need ground troops, use ground troops. If you don't need ground troops, there's lots of things that can be done without ground troops. For example, there are these islands where supposedly the ships are passing by, and where basically the Iranians are collecting a toll. Now, there are facilities on these islands that are threatening these ships. That's why they pay a toll. Well, these islands should be flattened. I mean, what you should do is basically let the civilian population of these islands and on the coastal areas around the Straits of Hormuz, let them know that they've got 24 hours to evacuate, and then flatten everything. Just bring the B-52s with the big bombs that you have and just flatten the place. Make it uninhabitable. Flatten the islands, flatten the shore. And also, by doing that, you also make it easier to notice if they're launching anything, right? Destroy every port there. Destroy every facility that might be able to launch a boat that might lay a mine. Just destroy that. I've been talking about this for 3 weeks now. Destroy the whole coastal area and the islands that are blocking the Hormuz Straits. And then if you need to occupy some of the islands, do it. And then bring in the international convoy, and including minesweepers. The UAE has some good minesweepers. And open up the straits. Two, destroy the income-producing industries of the IRGC. Kill their source of revenue. That means, like Israel did. Israel bombed the two big steel manufacturers in Iran. Find out, and I'm sure the U.S. knows this, I'm sure the CIA knows this, the Mossad knows this, everybody knows this. What are the key industries in Iran that the IRGC receives revenues from? And go in and bomb them into oblivion. Just destroy them. 3, continue assassinating whoever you can in the IRGC. Going after them one by one. Supposedly there was a whole series of assassinations this weekend. We don't know exactly who was taken out. The Iranians finally admitted that the chief of the Navy was taken out last week. So that it might take a few days to find out exactly who was taken out. One of their big scientists was taken out. A bunch of people were taken out this weekend. Keep that up. Keep doing it. Keep doing it intensely. Day in, day out. Make them so they don't know. They are petrified. And they keep turning on each other. And finally, and this is somewhat separate, but I think it has to be done, is you've got to figure out a plan. You've got to figure out a plan to get the uranium out. Right now, one of the cards the Iranians have is we have the uranium. You want the uranium? Give us a bunch of stuff, right? We'll take it from them. The United States already has significant ground forces in the area. They have Marines, not as many as they want. Marines are still coming in, but they have some Marines. And they have special forces. Israel has special forces, probably operating in Iran, and that they could bring into Iran. Figure out a plan. It's going to be complicated. It's going to be, it's going to be intense. It's going to take a few days. But basically figure out, if you know where the uranium deposits are, surround the places, figure out how to land an airplane close by, bring in the heavy equipment you need, get those, get the drums of enriched uranium out of it. The United States has done it before, not under combat, not under fire, but given the air dominance, given that they could probably deploy A-10s and helicopters. Now, this would be within Iran, in mountainous areas in Iran. But I think it's doable, given what they've done to their defense systems. They have complete air control. They could take out any Iranian forces from the air, and then they would have to be able to sustain positions for a few days while this was excavated, taken out, and taken out of the country. This is what these guys trained for. This is what these special forces do. I mean, think about the Israelis in Syria. What was it? 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I can't remember when it was. It's a big underground bunker that the Iranians had in Syria, where they developing weapons. It was very deep. It was heavily secured. And Israel came in with special forces, knocked out the security, send its special forces inside the bunkers, inside this facility, deep underground. They lay explosives. They got out. They blew the whole thing up. It took them a few hours during the night. That needs to happen. They might have to do that as well in some of the missile locations that are deep underground. But certainly, they need to either get the uranium out or make it so that nobody can ever get at it. I'm not sure how you do that. I think it's easier to get it out. The drones, yes, Iran has drones, and they can take out ground troops. The U.S. better figure this out, right? This is the future of modern warfare. So whether you have to go to the Ukrainians or what you have to do, but you better figure out how to provide your troops on the ground with anti-drone technology to take out the drones. And this won't be a riskless operation. It won't be a casualty-less operation. But getting the uranium out is primary strategic value. And figuring out how to deal with the drone threat is like number one, issue for the Americans and the Israelis, because they're gonna. I mean, Israel can do it in Israel. Can they do it when they project force out of Israel? We'll find out. But it has to happen. So that would be what I suggest. Screw the negotiations. Take out the rest of the gas. Israel supposedly, Tehran went into darkness over the weekend. Electricity, there was no electricity in Tehran, and at least one other city in Iran, it lost all electricity. Nobody knows exactly what happened, but supposedly the Israelis used something called a graphite bomb, which is a non-lethal weapon that shuts down electricity without permanently damaging infrastructure. It dispenses conductive graphite fibers over power systems, causing short circuits and widespread outages. Now, again, I know nothing about this, so this is what I'm reading. But they took out the electricity grid. Keep doing that. Plunge Iran into darkness. And I would take out the rest of the gas facility. The Israelis took out 40% of it. Take out the rest of it. And again, any factory, any facility where the IRGC gains any kind of revenue, take it out. Take it out. I don't know what caused outages. That's speculation, but that's what I've been reading. That was one of the speculation I read about. Now, Israel is claiming right now that it is basically close to 90% of all key weapons development sites. So they had a list of sites, development sites, IGC targets, other things. But of available targets, Israel's basically hit 90%. They've destroyed, they believe, the capacity of the Iranians to build weapons, at least anytime soon. This is missiles, nuclear, drones, and all other kind of weapons. The IDF is claiming they're in the completion phase, and with most military and weapon production targets already being struck, focus is shifting on economic targets. Good. This is economic targets. This is IRGC targets. But economic side, the dollar side. And the whole idea is to increase pressure by damaging Iran's economy and by squeezing the IRGC financially. They took out the steel factories. They need to do a lot more than that. I mean, It seemed like when they took out the steel factories, Iran panicked a little bit. Steel is I think, the second largest industry in Iran. It took out the two largest. Take out the rest of them. Take out the whole frigging industry. So economic disruption is where they need to go. Where they need to go from here. But you know, and they need to keep the assassinations going. They need to keep taking out these people. Israel over the weekend took out an entire complex at Hussein University, which is a central academic and operational hub for Iran's armed forces, IRGC again. It is where they did research and development for advanced weaponry under civilian cover. They had one of these wind tunnels for testing ballistic missiles. That facility was taken out and destroyed over the weekend. That's a second university research facility that the Israelis have taken out. Okay, I mean, there's more and more reports about an ever-growing rift between people within this whatever regime exists. You remember a few weeks ago we talked about the possibility that the Kurds might be being armed by the CIA and the Mossad, and they would come in from Iraq and they would basically invade and become a force that actually challenged the Iranian military and IRGC and potentially could be boots on the ground. Well, that has never happened and has been basically now clear that it's not going to happen. And a lot of the stories this weekend were saying that the reason for that was that the whole thing was leaked. Because it was leaked, the Turks put a lot of pressure on Trump about, you know, they don't want a Kurdistan, they don't want a Kurdish autonomous region. And then the Turks also put pressure on the Gulf states, who put pressure on Trump. And then, of course, Iran shifted forces towards the region, which would have made it a lot more difficult, although I think with air support from the Israelis and the Americans, very doable. I think, and then, of course, the Kurds hesitated because they don't trust Trump. Trump has betrayed them over and over and over again. Why would they trust Trump? So the whole Kurdish operation, which made sense and could have had a real impact, could have put a lot of pressure on the regime in key areas, is being called off because of a distrust of Trump, because he's betrayed the Kurds so many times, and because it was leaked, and of course because of the Turks, who keep putting pressure on Trump in opposition to the Kurds. All right. Let's see if there's anything else I want to... Yeah, one of the lessons the Pentagon has certainly learned from this war is need more production of missiles. It looks like missile production in the U.S. is going to quadruple. In particular, the production of precision strike missiles like the Patriot missiles and the Tomahawk missiles, that is going to quadruple, which is huge. All right, let's see. Yeah, it's worth noting that, you remember I told you that there are a number of paths to get around the Hormuz Straits. The Saudis can pump oil to the Red Sea. Well, they've reached max production on the Red Sea. So a big chunk of what the Saudis would export normally is now being exported, except instead of going through the Straits of Hormuz, it's going to the Red Sea, up in the Suez Canal or down south to the Sea of Arabia and to Asia. So far, the Houthis are letting that traffic move across the straits off of the coast of Yemen. That is working. UAE has also significantly increased pumping of its oil through a pipeline that goes to Oman and goes to to a port on the Oman Sea, on the Oman Gulf, that is outside of the Straits of Hormuz, that is south of the Straits of Hormuz. That is at maximum. Now, it does seem like, again, fog of war, I don't have accurate information. It seems like the Iranians have hit some of the pumping stations along that pipeline. So they're trying to stop it. How successful they've been, hard to tell. Again, prices of oil are going up. We'll get to another reason why prices of oil are going up in a minute, but there might be a number of factors playing into here. But the Saudis and the UAE are trying to find ways around the Straits of Hormuz to get their stuff out as quickly as possible. A number of stories from Fox News, from other places, over the weekend, that Saudi Arabia has officially confirmed that they're joining the war against the Islamic Republic of Iran. I've seen no evidence of that. No, Saudi Arabia sorties over Iran. No, no Saudi Arabian ground troops invading Iran. So I don't know what that means. They're not flying in Iran. They're not bombing anything in Iran. Hopefully, they will be part of this attempt to open up the Straits of Hormuz. But we'll see if that really happens. The Saudis seem to speak with a big stick, but not actually use one. Again, a bunch of stuff happened. Bunch of targets happened over the weekend. The Houthis, by the way, did join the war by lobbing some ballistic missiles to Israel, but not by blocking the straits so far. Israel did take some damage this weekend. Missiles falling. The refiner in Haifa was hit, although it doesn't look like it's any significant damage. There's some stories about Teva, the pharmaceutical company, being hit. I haven't seen any confirmation of that, so I don't know if that's true. So there's been a bunch of damage in Israel, but as far as I know, no significant casualties. Israel continues to destroy the missile storage facilities, tunnels in Iran. It's hard to tell how they do it. Again, the tunnels are pretty deep in the mountains, but it does look like a massive explosion, that could only mean that it's a tunnel filled with missiles or other military equipment. So Israel continues to search out whatever facilities it hasn't yet destroyed and destroy them. What is this one said? Yeah, I mean, it might be that Israel needs to drop some special forces in there to go deep into the tunnels and blow them from the inside out. But they haven't gotten to the point where they feel that is necessary yet. They might at some point. All right, let's see. Anything else? Tehran is under attack. The IAEA, which is the Atomic Energy Commission, confirmed that the heavy water facility in Arak is out of commission. It was struck and it's out of commission. So they succeeded in putting that out of commission. The Israelis did. I don't know why they don't strike it again, just for safe measure. Maybe I don't think there's any fear of radiation there. Anyway, Iran is not, the number of missiles Iran is launching is pretty stabilized, as is the number of drones. It doesn't seem to be going down dramatically, but it does seem to be going up. We will see. Again, stories are that that several hundred U.S. Special Forces are now in the area, including Army Rangers and Navy SEALs. They're all joining kind of the 82nd Airborne and the Marines. The Airborne, remember, these are paratroopers. These are people who could be deployed by helicopter, by paratrooping into areas where the refined uranium is actually being stored. And then there is talk about Trump, according to the Wall Street Journal, thinking about a ground operation. This is both in the Financial Times and in the Wall Street Journal, getting the 400 kilograms of highly enriched uranium out and using special forces to do that. All right, and I think somebody asked, how do we know that Iran has any enriched uranium? Well, we know that from the IAEA, their surveillance cameras throughout Iran, and the actual surveillance in Iran. In February 2023, they detected traces of uranium enriched to 84% of uranium-235. That can be used for a nuclear bomb. It's 6% shy of weapons grade level, so it wouldn't take much to get it from 84 to 90. But more importantly, or more established, they based on, again, the monitoring of everything the Iranians have done, they believe that the Iranians have about 400 kilograms, 440 kilograms at 60%. They have 184 kilograms at 20%, and 6,000 kilograms at 5%. And then 2,391 kilograms at up to 2%. Any one of these can be used then, if you have the centrifuges, to bring them up to weapons grade and to use them for weapons grade. Again, and there were indications that Iran had done so with the 84% uranium, at least on a sample. So this is pretty much verified by an organization that doesn't have really a stake in the game. It's not Israeli, it's not American. The International Atomic agency, monitoring agency, the IAEA. So there's no doubt, and I don't think the Iranians have denied it, that they have this uranium. There is some doubt about whether the U.S. and Israel know where it is. That we don't know. The IAEA stands for International Atomic Energy Agency. Yes, all right. We don't know if anybody knows where it is. Remember that after the June bombing, I mean, this is typical Trump, right? So here's a great Trump story, right? After the June bombing of the Iranian nuclear facility by the B-2s with the big bunker buster bombs, Trump basically said, that's it, we've annihilated their nuclear program. We've annihilated the uranium, the enriched uranium. It's all gone. Their program is finished. It's done. It will take decades. And right after he said that, the Army intelligence, right, the Army intelligence basically came out and said, probably not. The enriched uranium is probably still there. Well, we've done a lot of damage. They could probably enrich it to weapons grade within months. And by the way, we're not even sure where the enriched uranium is exactly. And Trump had a hissy fit. It's like he had Hegseth, Lamblast, the intelligence agency, and other intelligence agencies came in and said, no, Trump is right. And there was a whole to-do about it. Well, now, quietly, or not so quietly, Trump and everybody have basically said, no, that intelligence report was absolutely right. Trump was wrong after the June attack. He overblew it. He overestimated. He made it into something that it wasn't. And the intelligence agencies was right. So typical Trump, speaking about stuff he knows nothing about, and trying to force reality to adapt to his consciousness rather than using his consciousness to understand reality. All right. So let's take a step back a minute from what's going on in the Middle East to what's going on in Ukraine, Russia, or at least one element, one aspect of what's going on. Over the last few days, really over the last week, Ukraine has used long-range drones and some of their domestically made missiles to hit Russia's second largest oil export terminal in the Baltic Sea. So this is where the Russians export a significant amount of oil to the rest of the world, right? And since Trump has eliminated the sanctions on Russian oil, they can sell in a world market at world prices. This has been an incredible source of revenue for the Russians. Over the last few weeks, as oil prices have gone up, their revenues have gone up, and it's kind of, they have recovered from real economic challenges that they were facing. Anyway, the Ukrainians managed to hit this depot, this terminal, 3 times in 1 week. 700,000 barrels per day of capacity are offline. And they've got other terminals have also suspended loading. Overall, it seems like 40% of Russia's total oil export capacity is gone. 40%. Maybe that explains the rise in oil, over today, right? As it sinks in, that Russia's oil capacity was down significantly. It is claimed that the repair timeline on this is somewhere between 18 to 24 months. I don't know. But in any case, the Ukrainians have shown the capacity to keep hitting this. India gets 80% of its Russian crude from these ports that the Ukrainians have hit. Russia is making $270 million a day from oil exports. That's been cut because of this. And of course, what this is showing is the Ukrainian capacity to use their drones. But the energy market is taking hits, not just in the Middle East, but also in Russia, which is important. Ukrainians also strike Russia's second largest oil refinery that processes 420 barrels per day. So they're also striking the capacity of the Russians to provide oil products to their own troops, and of course to export them. And there's video of this thing just blowing up, this is a refinery that produces jet fuel for Russian military aviation, and naval fuel for the Russian Navy, and lubricants for attack helicopters. Well, not anymore, a lot less, if at all. So what you're getting is the Ukrainians depleting the Russians' capacity to export oil and export oil products or use oil products, which again is probably impacting the price of oil out there as we speak. And I expect more of that to come. Now, a lot of countries are telling the Ukrainians, stop it. We've got enough energy problems. Don't do it. Stop hitting all these refineries and stop hitting the export terminals. We need Russian oil out there in the market. I'm sure the Americans are flipping out at the Ukrainians. Ukrainians, at least for now, seems to be ignoring them and continuing to attack oil facilities that the Russians have and to attack the ability to export and make money off of it. For Ukraine, it's survival. But here's the, I think, deeper point that it's important to make during this energy crisis. And there is an energy crisis all across Asia, and it's trickling out to various places around the world, and ultimately it'll affect the United States, it'll affect Europe. It's going to be bad. How bad? Hard to tell, but it's going to be bad. Energy prices are up, the supply of energy is down, and we've talked about fertilizer, we've talked about helium for microprocessors. There are real consequences to what's happening in the Middle East. Real economic consequences across the entire world. But the fault for these consequences is not with this war. Everybody knew or could have speculated that at some point something would happen to cause the Iranians to close the Straits of Hormuz, or to somebody else to close the Straits of Hormuz. I mean, we saw a demonstration of that in the closing of the Straits and the Red Sea by the Houthis. This is a strategic liability that everybody's known about for decades. And yet, over the last 15 years, Europe in particular, but also the United States, as well as other countries, have systematically degraded their energy infrastructure, made it harder and harder and harder to drill for oil, drill for natural gas. It turns out there's plenty of oil and natural gas still in the North Sea, which the UK is not drilling. It turns out there's plenty of oil and natural gas in Africa, which Europe and the rest of the world have been discouraging the Africans from developing. And whereas 10 years ago, they would have provided the funding for that development, they have withdrawn that funding, all under the idea of net zero. We don't need fossil fuels, we were told by the preachers of net zero, by climate change fanatics. We don't need fossil fuels. We're going to invest in solar panels and windmills, and they did. Trillions of dollars went into this so-called renewable yet unreliable energy sources. And yet, in spite of the trillions of dollars that went into it, the world still relies on 87% of energy consumption on fossil fuels. And yet, when countries wanted to develop their fossil fuel assets, they were discouraged from doing so. Great Britain not only sits on oil and natural gas in the North Sea, together with Norway, but Great Britain has immense fracking potential. Not potential, reality. They could frack tomorrow. The UK is ripe for fracking. There is immense amounts of natural gas right there. Now imagine if the UK were fracking right now and supplying themselves with natural gas, cost of energy would have plummeted. The economy would be, right now it's a basket case. It's a complete and utter disaster. Economy would be a lot better. Energy costs would be a lot cheaper. Production would be a lot more robust. And maybe they could even make the helium that is so needed out there. They can make a lot of things once you have natural gas. And yet, conservative governments, not Starmer. We can blame Starmer all we want. But the reality is that it is conservative governments of the past that shut down. They controlled British politics for so long. They are the ones that shut down oil and gas. They're the ones who shut down the idea of fracking. And they're the ones who went net zero. Think about Germany shutting down its nuclear power plants and the UK not building nuclear power plants. Germany, think about the fact that Germany has shut down not just nuclear power plants, but has destroyed coal plants. Right now, Germany could be shifting to coal. There's still a lot of coal out there. Poland is still a manufacturer of coal. They could be importing coal. There's plenty of coal in Germany, and they could be running the electric grid on coal, thus reducing their need for natural gas and oil. No. So the fact that we weren't developing, Japan shut down its entire nuclear power electric grid after, what's his name? The tsunami, right? Which makes them super dependent on natural gas from the Middle East. Again, Germany shut down their grid. The redundancies have not been built in. The extra, the diversification to coal doesn't exist. The only people building new coal plants are the only people who are actually diversified, and that's the Chinese. Japan is reopening their nuclear reactors. They have been doing so over the last year, slowly but systematically restarting them. This crisis right now will accelerate that. But imagine if we'd encouraged African countries to develop their natural gas and oil reserves. I mean, look, Israel now is a net exporter of natural gas. Egypt today is a net exporter of natural gas. These are countries that had nothing 10 years ago. And that's because they discovered fields in the Mediterranean. Some of that natural gas, some of those fields probably belong to Lebanon and to Cyprus. They should be exploiting them. This is a self-inflicted crisis. Imagine fracking in the UK, or Germany for that matter. Germany itself probably sits on massive reservoirs of natural gas if they were willing to frack it. Ukraine, one of the reasons supposedly for the war is Putin's desire to take over the natural gas deposits. There is no shortage of oil and natural gas around the world. No shortage. I mean, Argentina is ramping up their production. Brazil has it offshore. Guyana, this little country in South America, has massive reserves of oil and natural gas offshore that they are exploiting right now. With American help, they are now the richest on a per capita GDP basis, richest country in Latin America, but that's cheating because almost all the GDP is coming from the oil. Still, most of the people, I think, in Guyana are pretty poor. But the amount of money coming in is amazing. Venezuela, hopefully, will be ramping up oil. There's plenty of natural gas in Australia that has been mired in legislation, in litigation. There's the potential for LNG coming from Australia, and they can't live up to that potential because of the Greens, because of net zero, because of all that. So the West has nobody to blame for this crisis other than himself. This is a self-inflicted crisis. All right, what else? Talk quickly about Lebanon. A few stories around Lebanon. One is, so Lebanon, the Lebanese government is trying to confront Hezbollah. They're not doing a very good job at it. They certainly have not they have not been willing to confront them militarily, but they have tried to shut them down, and they passed laws that are antagonistic to Hezbollah. One of the things they did was they came out with their foreign office in Lebanon came out and said the Iranian ambassador to Lebanon is kicked out of the country. He's unwelcome here. Unwelcome. Persona non grata, because he supports Hezbollah, the Iranian regime. Well, Hezbollah got really upset, including Hezbollah members of the government, and they basically said, no, we won't allow him to leave. And he is basically staying. He's staying, which is very unusual. When a country kicks out the ambassador of another country, they leave. But Iran's foreign ministry has said he's not leaving, he's staying. Hezbollah said he's not leaving, he's staying. And this is a real test. This is a real test for the Lebanese government. Now, it's true that the Shiites in the government don't want to piss off Iran too much. That's why they're supporting him staying. But other people in Lebanon and the Lebanese government want to cut off relations with Iran completely. So there is a real tension right now in Iran around in Lebanon around their relationship with Iran. In southern Lebanon, in the meantime, the Israelis continue to make progress in taking southern Lebanon, in basically occupying southern Lebanon. They are basically heading towards the Litani River, the river that basically separates the rest of Lebanon from the south. Then they are going around the larger, more populated areas and cities. There's a city on the Tzor, on the coast. They're going around them, heading, and they're trying to basically surround all those and occupy all the space in between and occupy all the strategic high points. This is a very hilly, mountainous region. I've actually been there. I've driven around southern Lebanon. It's very mountainous. It's not an easy region to travel through. It's hard to tell exactly what's going on. There's no question Israel is taking casualties. The Hezbollah is using anti-tank, shoulder-held missiles to cause significant casualties and go after tanks and armored personnel carriers. It's hard for me to tell how many. I've seen a wide variety of reports in terms of what's actually going on there. But it does seem clear that Israel is, for the first time really since 2000, occupying, or plans to occupy, the entire southern part of Lebanon and create a buffer zone between the forces of Hezbollah and the Israeli settlements and towns in the north of Israel. This is going to be a difficult campaign. They've already reached the Litani River in a few spots, but as I said, very mountainous, difficult terrain to travel with tanks, armored vehicles, lots of places where they can be ambushed, lots of places, and I remember ambushes in that area in the 1982 war. So this was a difficult region to traverse. A lot of very, very bloody battles were fought here, but in those days, it was between the Israeli army and the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization. They're terrorists, which occupied this territory back then. So Israel's taking casualties, injured, and some are dead. Hard to tell, again, the numbers. Hard to tell how many tanks are being hit and taken out of commission. They're calling up more reserves. More reserves will enter the space. Israel, I expect, within 2 to 3 months, will completely control the south of Lebanon and will be slowly and systematically eliminating whatever elements of Hezbollah are left there, which is part of what they're trying to do. Just in terms of Israeli internal politics, I thought this was just so, this just pisses me off so much. The Israeli government passed a budget yesterday. It is the largest budget ever passed. Now, you would say, oh, well, that's expected. There's a war going on, but no, it's the largest budget ever because in order to sustain the coalition and prevent an election anytime soon, delay the election as much as possible, which is what Netanyahu wants to do, he has had to give in to the ultra-Orthodox religious parties and pay them off with billions and billions of dollars. And this was all last minute. Even the opposition was so confused, they landed up voting for it, even though they all oppose it. Anyway, they passed a $271 billion wartime budget. And the ultra-Orthodox are the winners from the whole thing. These are the people who don't serve in the military, really don't support the self-defense of the state of Israel, and they get rewarded with tons of subsidies and money given to them. So that is, I think, that is pretty horrific, but typical of Israeli politics. I hope that one day, maybe the next government, there will be a government without the ultra-Orthodox members in it. It's hard to see exactly how that happens. It would mean that many of the opposition parties would have to team up with the Likud, with Netanyahu, to form the next government. And I don't see Netanyahu doing that. and maybe not even the opposition parties agreeing to sit down with Netanyahu. But it has to happen. The ultra-Orthodox need to be relegated to the margins of Israeli politics. There is an overwhelming majority of, I call it right of center in Israel, which includes a number of political parties that don't get along with one another, primarily because of who leads them, the personalities, not because of disagreements about content, about policy. And that is the great tragedy in Israel. All right, on the good news side, I think, the Israeli parliament also passed a law that mandates the death penalty for Palestinians convicted of deadly terror attacks. Now, it's a complicated law that clearly discriminates between Palestinians and Israeli citizens, whether Arab or Jew. So we'll see how it does in the Supreme Court of Israel. But I think this is the right direction to move in, right? Israel has no capacity to resist freeing murderous terrorists when Israelis are taken hostage, for example, by Hamas. One way to avoid that is to kill them. Somebody's convicted of murder, a terrorism that led to murder, they killed, then no longer something to, kidnap an Israeli in order to negotiate for their release. It takes away a card from the terrorist card arsenal. I'm getting my metaphors all mixed up. But it takes away the ability and the motivation to kidnap people if you've got nobody to release in their place. So while the law is probably not the kind of law that I would want, certainly not in a free country, on a regular basis, in a sense that it has certain discriminatory aspects to it. I think ultimately it serves a purpose, particularly in these times until the issues with the Palestinians are resolved. It is, kill the terrorists, and then they can't be negotiated. Nobody can negotiate for their freedom. By the way, the EU has threatened Israel that if they pass this law, if they pass this death penalty, the EU will sanction Israel. So we know which side the EU is on. All right, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time just going through a few really amazing examples that Donald Trump gave us last week of how ridiculously absurd he is and how horrific his personality and his who he is, the kind of human being he is. He just gave such great examples of this. And again, when I read these statements by him, it just stuns me that he is president of the United States. It's just hard for me to believe. So this one I mentioned on Saturday, but I don't know, a lot of you were there, so I'll read it again. This is a couple of these were last week at a speech that he gave. And this is one that goes to the heart of Trump's character, self-esteem, kind of human being he is. And for those of you out there who believe that he's some kind of Ayn Rand hero, for those of you out there who believe he's some kind of model for an objectivist, that he is somehow selfish and self-interested in a rational sense, try to rationalize this. This is what Trump said. He said, "I always like to hang around with losers because it makes me feel better. I hate guys that are very, very successful, and you have to listen to their success stories. I like people that like to listen to my success." I mean, that's just an unbelievable sentence. I mean, that's straight out of the villain's mouth in Atlas Shrugged. I mean, or the Fountainhead. You can name a number of villains that this would be right out from there. I mean, James Taggart, this is perfect. Perfect. Somebody wrote, that explains everything. Hex at the defense, a drunken TV host running a war, gnome at Homeland Security, famous for shooting her own dog, Vance as VP, the most disliked man in America, cabinet selected for obedience. Well, for being losers. For being losers. That's what he says. I always like to hang out around losers because it makes me feel better. Think about the self-esteem of a man who says that. The self-esteem of a man who says that. And the pure narcissism. I mean, it's not even hidden. That when he says, I like people that like to listen to my success. I don't want to listen to other people's success. No. If I don't want to hang around people more successful than me, oh no. Makes me feel little. God, the self-esteem that this guy has is pretty, or the lack of it is pretty unbelievable. But it didn't end there. In the same speech, he said this. He said this about MBS, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, who's trying to get to support the war and help out with the opening of the Hormuz Straits. He said this about the Crown Prince. Quote, he didn't think he would be kissing my ass. He really didn't. And now he has to be nice to me. He better be nice to me. I guess MBS is another one of those losers that Trump likes to hang around with. The ass-kissing kind of losers. The kind of losers who kiss the president of the United States' ass. Again, this is the leader of the free world. This is the president of the United States. What the hell? And this is a guy who he needs help from right now. Who he wants to help him. I'm sure he's playing 4D chess here. I'm sure that's what he's doing. Oh, and on top of that, on top of all this, last week, the president, it was announced by the Treasury Department that that from now on all our money, you know, our money. Oh, I don't have any cash on me. No cash. I've got some other country's cash here. I've got Turkish lira, but no dollars. All right. You know how you always have a signature of the Treasury Secretary? Of the Treasury Secretary. And that's been the way it's been done. U.S. Treasurer and U.S. Treasury Secretary, the ones who signed American money, I think forever, as far as I know. Well, from now on, any new bills that you get, any new money you get, will have Donald Trump's signature on it. And indeed, this is to celebrate the country's 250th anniversary. He is so the opposite of George Washington, so the opposite in everything of George Washington, that it's unbelievable. Unbelievable. This is to honor the Declaration of Independence. No, I mean, this is the opposite of honoring the Declaration of Independence. And then during another, you know, he was signing something, and he goes on this rant about the pens, right? He was, you know, so he says, you know, he goes off on this tangent because he's holding a pen, and he says, which he does all the time. He says, this pen is an interesting example. This is the black permanent marker that he has between his fingers that he uses to sign stuff. This pen is very inexpensive, but it writes well. I like it. And he says, but he said, they don't look good. They don't look good. So I had to do something about it. So he says, I called the guy. This is the guy at Choppies. This is the company called Choppies. And he said, I'd like to use your pen, but I can't have a great thing with a big S on it saying Sharpie, as I'm signing a $1 trillion airplane contract to buy brand new fighter jets. So the other guy says, well, I can make it nicer. I said, well, what can you do? He says, I'll paint it black. I said, that's nice. And I can even paint the White House on it, sir, if you like, in gold, almost real gold, not bad. And I can even do your signature, sir. So the guy said to me, you don't have to pay me, sir. I'll give you them for nothing. I said, no, I don't want that. Let me pay you. I want to pay you. No, sir, you don't have to. You're the president of the United States. He was shocked, the head of Sharpie. He gets a call. I don't even know who the hell he is. He said, he's really the president? No, you don't have to pay me, sir. This is such an honor. I said, no, I want to pay you. And he said, what would you like to pay? I said, how about $5 a pen? He said, that's all right. So he goes into a whole rant because this is the pen he's using to sign the thing. Now, somebody went to Sharpies and showed them the transcript of what Trump said and asked them if this happened. And this is the official response from Sharpie. We don't have any information about the conversation described. We're proud to be the beloved brand trusted by so many globally. Trump just made it up. He just made it up. It appears. Who knows? This is the character, the person we've got running the most powerful nation in all of human history. And here's the sad thing, that the opposition to him is just as bad. So what was it, yesterday or Saturday, there was the No Kings marches all over the country, millions of people. Some estimates put it 8 million people. Marched in all across all different cities around the country in the No Kings marches. No Kings marches. And people ask me, should I go? Should I go? And I don't like Trump. I'm anti-Trump. Should I go and participate in the No Kings marches? And I said, I wouldn't. I wouldn't, because you'd be marching with people you should despise. So some of the speakers at No Kings, Representative Omar, the Somali woman who supports the Iranians and supports Hamas over the United States and Israel. Bernie Sanders, who would like to bring European-style socialism to America. Bruce Springsteen, who is a good singer, but a terrible, terrible leftist. Oh, God, way out there on the left. Jane Fonda. I mean, this is North Korea Jane, communist Jane. Joan Baez. Joan Baez, again, a good singer. I saw live once in Israel, but a massive leftist, right? And this is just in one place. This was in St. Paul, a rally in St. Paul, right? But this is repeated all over the United States. This is in Minnesota. This is repeated all over the United States. Right? Leftist speakers, leftist people marching. I saw many, many, many Palestinian flags, Hamas flags, Iranian flags. Oh, and then I saw a bunch of people with the hammer and sickle, that is, communist flags, taking over one of the No Kings demonstrations. Explicit communists arguing for communism. Maybe Hassan Paika was one of them. You can't, I mean, I can't be in a demonstration like that. Even if they're the minority. I have no common cause with these. Trump, like they hate Trump. We hate them for completely different reasons. So I wouldn't go. I don't think public demonstrations are very effective or very useful or very productive. And as objectivists, we're such a minority, and these leftists overwhelm everything. Their flags, it's just, yeah. I wouldn't want to be anywhere near any of these people. All right, guys, that is indeed the news for this Monday, March 30th. The month is almost over. All right, which reminds me, given that the month is almost over, I want to remind you that I have monthly goals for Super Chat, and that kind of requires that we meet our hourly goals over the next few shows. Now, tonight, tomorrow, last 3 shows of the month, so I can make the monthly goal. We are about $200 short of the goal for the second hour, which we're going to go through because there are a lot of $20 questions. And in spite of a lot of $20 questions, we're still short of the goal. Maybe we need some stickers. Stickers, people? Any sticker people? Thank you, Stephen, for the sticker. Thanks, Mike Dial. Thank you, Mary Aline. Who else? Thank you, Jonathan Honing. Really appreciate it. Thanks to all the sticker people. We could do more. We could have more sticker people. We got 190 people watching. So just press the dollar button below and trade with me. Value for value. You listen to the show. You gain something from it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening. I deliver the show here available to you. Let's facilitate a trade. Roland, thank you for the sticker. It could be $1. Roland just did 1.5 Swiss francs, and I very much appreciate that. It can be $500 or anything in between. So feel free. Also, questions are great because that way you get to decide what I talk about. I'll talk about whatever you want me to talk about, whatever's in the question. So that's great. You can do, I'm particularly interested in $20 and $50 questions, but again, you can do $2 questions. Richard, the first question we'll get to is a $50 question. So that is great. That is great. Yep, I think that is a reminder. End of month, we need to make our numbers. Make our numbers. Everybody needs to make our numbers. Thank you, Linda, for the sticker. Really appreciate that. Chipping away slowly and systematically. Thank you, Alan and Micro from Italy. Really appreciate that. Moderna, beautiful Moderna. There's Gail. Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. And don't forget, I want to remind everybody, don't forget about the show tonight with Amish. Come with lots of questions. That would be the best way to support the show tonight, is to have a lot of questions for Amish. He's a fascinating guy. He knows a lot about health more broadly, but particularly about pandemics, epidemics, about bioweapons, and about the situation at the Health and Human Services Department in Washington, D.C. under RFK. So bring lots of questions for all of those. Dubliv says YouTube Super Chat features is not available where I live. Where you live? How is this not available? I know that some countries, for some reason, don't make it possible. In that case, one thing you can do is become a monthly supporter of the show on Patreon or on PayPal. Services that hopefully are available pretty much everywhere. You can go to Patreon and put in Yaron Brook Show and just become a monthly supporter. And then you don't have to worry about the Super Chat, although I appreciate that some of you do both. And that is even better. That is fantastic. All right, let's see. Sri Lanka. We'll have to talk to YouTube about why they're not offering super chat in Sri Lanka. Well, I appreciate it that you are watching this show from Sri Lanka. That is amazing. You're probably one of, maybe the only one in Sri Lanka watching this. Maybe there's only a handful of people watching this in Sri Lanka. So that is pretty cool. Israel just announced that it believes that it has killed 2,000 IRGC and Basij fighters in terrorists, as they call them, in Iran, just over the weekend. That's big numbers, given that Iran is 1,500 kilometers away, 1,000 miles away. All right. Let's see. All right. Let us talk about our sponsors quickly. Alex Epstein, who is kind of the world expert out there on all things energy and everything, all the stuff about energy and oil and gas, and of course, unreliable, like windmills and solar. Alex has been at the forefront of that entire debate, at the forefront of arguing the national security failure that is this massive investment in sun and wind, and he's been proven right over and over and over again. And if you sign up for his Substack, alexepstein.substack.com, you will learn so much about what's going on in the world when it comes to these issues of energy and anything related to it. Defendersofcapitalism.com is a website created by Michael Williams, who has a program to defend capitalism philosophically, economically, politically. Just an amazing program. I've contributed to that program quite a bit, and you can check out the website. And if you have a company, an organization that you would like to invite in to talk about this, let us know. Let us know. Let's see, we have Hendershot Wealth. Hendershot is with 2 T's. hendershotwealth.com/YBS. If you have stock that's appreciated a lot, and if you sell it, you're going to have a huge tax liability. Or if you're going to sell your company in the next few years and you're going to have a huge capital gains liability, check out hendershotwealth.com/YBS. They have products that are perfectly suited for that. You can also check out my interview with Robert Hendershot on my playlist for sponsors. And it's a great interview, and you'll learn a lot. And if it's appropriate, call them. Schedule a meeting. And finally, the Ayn Rand Institute has got a conference in Porto, Portugal, April 18th and 19th. I'll be there. Tautz Fani and Ankar will be there. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Join us, particularly if you're in Europe, but really anywhere. Join us at the conference. And you can get a discount. 26YBS10, 26YBS10. And the information is all available, including where to sign up, at aynrand.org/start here. aynrand.org/start here. All right, guys. Let's go to the super chat, and I'll remind you again to keep doing the stickers and the super chats so that we can get to our goal. We're $180 short, so 9 $20 questions will get us there. Perfect. Or, 4 $50 questions. We'll also get it there. Richard, $50. Thank you, Richard. Do you think that if Trump bungles the Iran war, it will still be better for the U.S. as opposed to never starting it? Or will a pathetic retreat after the Iranians close the straits, well, they have closed the straits, lead to even less U.S. credibility than we had before the war? Well, I definitely think it's going to lead to less credibility than before the war. So I definitely, if we bungle it and have to retreat, we'll have a lot less credibility. I think it will provide Iran with a sense of real success and a sense that, okay, maybe we don't have nukes, but we have the Hormuz Straits and we can close it at any time and the Americans won't do anything about it. It will completely demoralize our allies in the Gulf. You know, the Qataris and the Saudis and the Kuwaitis and the Bahrainis and those guys. And they will have to really rethink their relationship with the United States. So this is big. This is not a trivial issue. This could be a real disaster. Now, Israel will be safer. But America will not necessarily. America will now place geopolitically a more difficult situation. Again, Israel will have done what it needs to do, weaken the ability of the Iranians to attack it. But the U.S. needs to be able to show the world, China and everybody else, that it can open the Hormuz Straits and it can sustain that. And they will not just cower before a regime that it clearly has military superiority over. So it's not an issue of ability, it's an issue of will. And if the United States shows zero will, that'll do massive damage to American credibility. Massive damage to America's, geopolitically, to what we have to deal with in the future. Winning this war, opening up the Hormuz Straits and winning this, it does the exact opposite. It is massively beneficial, particularly with the relationship with China. Right? Particularly with the relationship with China. Richard with a $100 question. Wow, Richard, thank you. Really, really appreciate this. Richard, I really appreciate Alex Epstein's work on nuclear and his talk with Robert Zubrin. Why is nuclear not getting more attention given its potential for both to unleash American energy flourishing and reduce the world's reliance on the whim of medieval theocrats in the Middle East? Well, because there is a institutionalized regulatory, establishment that is very difficult to change. And there are environmentalist laws that allow the environmentalists to try to hamper any attempt at really building any nuclear power plants. So I think that in the Trump administration, there is a lot of push for nuclear. There is a lot of attempts to do it. But look, nuclear power providers are hesitant because it takes a long time to build a nuclear power plant. And while this administration might be positive, what about the next one? They're hesitant because the regulator is still pretty strict and it could take forever and costs, and nobody knows how to estimate what those costs will be. So unless there's some verifiable way to convince investors that, no, we have turned a corner and we're doing nuclear, we're going all in on nuclear, and we're going to reduce the regulations, we're going to simplify, we're going to streamline, and we're dedicated to nuclear, and we're going to get rid of the regulations, the environmental regulations, build nuclear power plants. We need a strategy to make that, to implement that. And that takes a lot of political will. And there are a lot of interest groups that fight against it. And look, Trump doesn't care. It's not like he's pro-nuclear. He just doesn't care. So he's open to nuclear if the nuclear guys are talking to him, and he's open to not doing nuclear if somebody else is talking to him who doesn't like nuclear. So you can't get this real dedicated push that is going to be required in order to overcome 50 years of anti-nuclear thinking, regulating, really a tradition now. Now in Europe, there's some dabbling with nuclear at the edges. France still is building nuclear. The Scandinavians are building nuclear. Germany, of course, shut down those nuclear power plants and is unlikely to reopen them, although there's talk about maybe they will. But they need to build new ones, modern ones, better ones. So does the rest of Europe. But, the Spanish are all in on windmills and solar. And it's the only ones who really have a nuclear power, industry are the French. Are the French. Shockingly. All right, Richard has just taken us over a goal. Thank you, Richard. So we are on progress to achieve our March goal, which is going to be tremendous. So Richard asks, also, if we're going to have any hope of reshoring American manufacturing, we need to unleash nuclear energy and accelerate building pipelines and LNG export terminals. I'd like to sponsor a show on nuclear if you're open to it, how to unleash it, the benefits, etc. Yeah, I'd love to do that. So send me an email and let me know the details, even a list of questions you would like answered, and we could do that. But yeah, I mean, I'm not big on onshoring. I'm big on friendshoring, but not on onshoring. I don't think it's that important to onshore industry, and I don't think it's possible. But if we want to maintain what we have, if we want to make, for example, all these AI facilities, what we need is small nuclear power plants to provide them with electricity. Like if each one of these massive server farms for AI just had a nuclear power plant attached to it, we'd be fine, right? And that industry will take us into the future. So nuclear power is I think the technology exists for it. I think the costs are being driven down. What we need is the regulators and the state and the environmentalists to get out of the way so it can happen. But it would make the data centers that everybody's talking about, it would make them feasible, make them doable. Whereas right now, it's going to be tricky. They're going to have to find all kinds of other ways to power them. And a lot of those ways are going to be dependent on fossil fuels, which are going to be, whose price at least is going to be dependent on global markets, which are influenced by what happens in the Middle East. Nuclear is not, particularly if we allow for mining of uranium in the United States. We don't, by the way. So we get our uranium from Russia. There's another bottleneck for you. We get our uranium from Russia. So one of the things that would have to happen, if you really want nuclear in the US, is you would have to also completely revamp our mining regulations and our production regulations, so we can mine uranium and then turn it into useful in a power plant. So all of that, whether it's uranium, thorium, whatever you have to do, we have to mine. We have to be able to mine rare earth materials in the US. We have to mine all the things that we need. Mining is more important than manufacturing. Or we have to be able to get supplies of uranium, rare earth materials, and others for friendly countries. For example, Ukraine has a lot of these minerals. So we should maybe be friendly with countries, which is, again, not this administration. All right. Thank you, Richard. Wow, you made my day. Really appreciate it. $250. So almost half of everything we've brought in from Super Chat was just Richard. So that's fantastic. All right. So according to sources in Israel, because Iran today struck Haifa's oil refineries, they view this as permission, if you will, to expand their bank of targets in Iran. Now, they can't yet, Trump has not given them yet authority to attack the oil and power, but they will find other things that they can go after. Not only regime assets, but also they will look for all kinds of other infrastructure other industries, other things like that, which I think is right. I mean, the only way they're going to get Iran to bend the knee in any kind of way is to destroy their economy, and they should be doing that. All right, it looks like more A-10s, Thunderbolt 2 attack aircraft are being sent from the United States to the region. All right, let's continue with the questions. How many objectivists are there in the world? Oh, God, I don't know. This is from Arthur. 100,000 tops. If we had a few million, it would make sense. These low numbers suggest people are really stupid and switched off. Well, switched off. I don't think stupid, but switched off. I think that's right. People are switched off. If you read The Missing Link by Ayn Rand, you realize how and why. But I don't know what the number is, and I don't know how you define objectivist. What do you define as an objectivist? And why are you worried about this? If the question is how many people are impacted by objectivism, how many people are influenced by objectivism, then it might be millions. But then it's how deeply does it go? How influenced are they? These are difficult questions, and we keep growing, keep adding people, keep influencing more, and one day there'll be a tipping point and the world will change. The world will change in our direction. Michael, you said you support the 3 strikes laws they had in California. Any 3 criminal offenses should get you life in prison, or just 3 felonies. If you get convicted of shoplifting, 3x, should you do life? No, 3 criminal offenses. It should basically be violent crime. Rape, murder obviously should go to jail forever anyway. Burglary, I don't know what the criminal offenses versus felonies. I don't know the exact legal definitions of these things, but basically any serious offense, shoplifting should not count. Although, as you have more shoplifting offenses, the penalty should be harsher and harsher and harsher. And at some point, you should spend the rest of your life in jail if you can't stop. Arthur, are the American people really such heroic individuals or anti-intellectual thugs who anointed Donald Trump as emperor? Well, I mean, it depends. Some are individualistic, heroic individualistic startup entrepreneurs who build companies, who create stuff that that create stuff from nothing, that build companies that create values, and some are proud boy thugs who want to overturn an election and elect thuggish Trump to power. So you can't generalize over the American people. You never could. Certainly can't today. You have anywhere from Antifa to, fascist thugs to everything in between, but also not in between. That is people on completely different axis who are actually producing, creating, building. And most Americans go to work and they work hard and they try to make the best for their families, and then not in either one of those categories. All right. Michael, if mankind suffers from the missing link that prevents most people from thinking abstractly, why did Marxism catch on? The idea of class struggle is an abstraction. Well, not really. Not if you really dig into it. How many people can actually explain to you what Marx actually stood for and represents? What Marxism did is it captured the intellectuals. And then the intellectuals ultimately came up with great slogans that brought it down to the level at which individuals, unthinking individuals or non-abstract thinkers could actually absorb, and they emphasized those slogans related to inequality, slogans related to the exploitation of the workers. But how many of the people, how many people know about Marx's, dialectical theory of history or his, his view of how of economics, the economic rationale, and how how the God, what am I thinking? The dictatorship of the proletarian would evolve, and what it even means to talk about a dictatorship of the proletarian. Very, very few. Very, very few. So this is the role of the intellectuals, to translate those abstractions into something ordinary people can understand. Clark, while Trump would appear to be a mindless brute, clearly a lot of thought and reason needed to be applied to achieve what he has in life. Well, I don't know if that's true. I mean, he inherited a lot of money. He went out there and speculated on real estate, and on many of them, he succeeded. What extent did he have to apply reason and thought deeply is hard to tell. And, at the end of his career in real estate, he had about as much money as he had when he started. If you adjust for the increase in the value of real estate in New York City, in Manhattan. If he'd just gone out and taken his inheritance and bought a bunch of commercial real estate in Manhattan, he would have done as well as he did by buying, selling, investing in casinos, doing all the stuff that he did. And a lot of his wealth came from his TV show and came from his ability to brand his name, the Trump brand, his ability to brand. So, I mean, yeah, some thought went into it, but not much. And, he has an ability to understand people and to give people what they want. Kind of a second-handed understanding of what people desire. He's very good at marketing as a consequence. Very good at marketing. And that's his real strength. But, he was dishonest as a businessman. He was, he was not the kind of person that I think anybody rational would want to do business with. All right. Liam, part one, is an anti-Semitic coalition arising in America? You have the Gen Z anti-Semitism of Nick Fuentes and the anti-Semitism of declining aristocracy, Tucker Carlson. Anti-Semitism always works to create a coalition. You have street gutter, crackpoint anti-Semitism. And then there's the more respectable anti-Semitism like Henry Ford or Tucker Carlson. And it comes together in the creation of an anti-Semitic political force. I mean, I think right now it looks like the anti-Semites are trying to be a political force within the left and within the right. And the question is going to be, to what extent can they be, right? It's the far left in the Democratic Party. It's the far right in the Republican Party. And the question is going to be, as we move forward, to what extent are they going to be a force within those parties? Clearly, anti-Semitism is what a lot of people are attracted to. They watch it. They consume a lot of anti-Semitism, right? But whether they're willing to actually act on it in a political sense, that is hard to tell at this point, and particularly on the right. So we will see. I mean, Tucker Carlson, on the one hand, is very popular. On the other hand, MAGA mostly supports, for example, this war, whereas Tucker Carlson opposes it. So how many people watch Tucker Carlson and how many people really support him, agree with him? I don't know. But yes, we're seeing the rise of an anti-Semitic force. We're seeing the fact that anti-Semitism fuels the far right and the far left. In the far left has anti-Semites in Congress, Ilhan Omar and others are anti-Semites. And, we'll see what kind of an impact they have on the culture more broadly and on politics ultimately. But it is something to watch, and it is very, very, very concerning. Catherine, how bad the lack of helium will be for the world economy in your view? Which countries are likely to fill the gap? Well, I mean, I think the United States is probably filling the gap. I don't know how much helium production is in the United States, but the United States obviously is a producer of LNG. Helium, I guess, is a byproduct of that process. My guess is the U.S. will fill in. Anybody who is shipping LNG is going to fill that gap. Egypt might be able to. I don't know if they have, again, the production facilities. But it's gonna be a hit for chip manufacturers in Taiwan and South Korea, which means it'll be a hit for anything that uses chips. Exactly how big of a deal that will be qua global economy is I think, for me at least, very hard to tell. Very hard to tell. But it's not trivial. Stephen Harper, curious your thoughts on the Spielberg movie Close Encounters, an interesting, different movie about communication, connection, and being afraid of the unknown and following your passion, even if everyone thinks you're crazy. Yeah, I mean, I like Close Encounters. It's got a bit of a weird, mystical almost element to it, but it is about the things that you say, communication, connection. It's certainly about somebody who goes against, everybody thinks he's crazy and insists and sticks to his guns. I think it's one of the benevolent kind of Steven Spielberg movies, but it definitely has a tinge of the mystical, which is hard to explain. It has, but yeah, it's a fun and interesting, I think, interesting movie. Spielberg's early movies were quite good. All right. Let's see. All right. Steven says, if you're in Europe on May 16th, Alma Deutsch will be conducting at the Upper Gala in Vienna. Unfortunately, I will not be in Europe May 16th. I will be home. Yes, I'll be home after a lot of travel. I like numbers. Maybe Trump wants an off switch for Chinese oil. I think he does, but the solution to that is regime change and bringing the new regime under American influence. It's not bombing all of Iran's oil. That would spike prices. That would be bad for China, but it would also be, I think, bad ultimately for the U.S. economy. So I don't think that's it. Oh, I'm sorry. Which one was Stephen Pettit? Close Encounters was Stephen Pettit. Sorry about that. Stephen Harper was Alma Deutsch. So Stephen Pettit, yeah. I mean, I like Close Encounters. I haven't seen it in many, many years. I'm curious what I think of it today. But when I watched it, probably watched it 2 or 3 times in the 80s, I really liked it. Thought Criminal, is there actual proof that the nuclear material exists? Yes. Again, the IEA, whatever, has literal proof of that. And it's not, and I think the Iranians have admitted it. So I don't think that's controversial, that it exists. The question is, where is it? How much there is? That nobody knows. Or I don't know. Maybe the intelligence agency knows. James, they say loneliness is often the product of a gifted mind. Any truth to this? Well, there's a sense in which it's true. That is that the culture generally, we treat our most gifted minds badly and isolate them. I don't think it has to be that way. I don't think a healthy culture is that way. But it's certainly in the world in which we live, that is certainly part of it. Part of what's going on. It's the people through envy, resentment, treat the people with gifted minds badly, and that brings about loneliness. Michael, should AI be prohibited from making child porn, or would the First Amendment have to protect it? I mean, I really haven't thought about it. I mean, who the hell wants child porn? Nobody. But on the other hand, who's the victim? There's no real victim, but it's so disgusting that I don't know. I'd have to think about it. So, given that you're not abusing anybody to get it, maybe you can't ban it. Maybe you can ban it. So, I mean, there shouldn't be any protection for child porn that uses children. But if it's just, if it's created by AI, on what basis, whose rights are being violated? I guess you would have to allow it. That's my tentative answer. Harper Campbell, is there an objectivist community in Puerto Rico? Any monthly meetup groups? I don't think so. There are objectivists here, but I don't think there's any objectivist community and meetup. None that I've been invited to anyway. What's your favorite brand of beer and scotch? I don't drink either one of those. If I was going to drink anything, it would be scotch, but I don't really enjoy it that much, and there's too much alcohol, and I don't like beer. I mean, maybe if you pushed me, I'd say Guinness from the tap in Dublin, but I generally don't like beer. Liam, if the state of Israel had existed during the rise of Hitler, do you think Mossad would have taken him out? I have no idea. I hope so. I hope so. I assume so, but I have no idea. It was hard. People tried to take him out. Very hard. Michael, these No Kings anti-Trump rallies seem eager to oust the king so that they can install a different king. Yeah, I mean, so many of them are authoritarians of the leftist kind that, yeah, they would bring in their own kind of king, right? Yaron, did you see my email about Drisky and Erica? Yeah, I saw it. I don't completely understand it. I mean, I don't know what he's making fun of. It's a picture. It seems like a cheap like thing. I don't see a video. I just see a photo that you sent me. If there's a video that has more content that I can respond to, that would be fine. But it seems like a cheap shot, just portraying her as fat with her tongue out and stuff like that. Yeah, if there's a link to something more with more meat that I can talk about, that would be good. James, how can we tell all our allies in every country around the world not to deliver energy to Cuba and then allow Russia? I do not understand. It's Trump. Trump likes Russia. He does what Putin asks him to do. So Russia's delivering oil to Cuba. Nobody else is. That's the bottom line. I don't have a better explanation than that. P. Gupta, what's the best way to support ICE protests but stay away from the crazies of No King? I mean, speak up. Just speak up and support. Speak up against ICE and support people filming ICE and demonstrating ICE. But you don't have to actually participate to support them. Just speak up about it. Talk about it when the opportunity arises. Stephen Harper, any theories regarding these reports of some strange videos of UFOs in the past few years, given that they're really not aliens or that, for that matter, demons? I have no theory. I haven't seen the reports. I haven't studied the reports. I'm sure wherever in the Air Force or in the CIA or whatever they have theories. I don't know. I've never looked into it really in any kind of significant way. This is, again, Stephen Pettit. Just so I get it right. So I've never been interested enough to look, and I have no theories. And my guess is there isn't one theory. There's just different things that explain different, whether it's some kind of, drone or somebody's testing out some new technology, or it's just some kind of weird thing that's happening with light. Capitalist Spice says, for the nuclear show, thank you. Kiki, what happens to markets at both sides? Both sides fully hit oil. Well, oil prices go up a lot. Oil prices go up a lot. Just like they did in the Gulf War when the Kuwaiti oil fields were all put ablaze. And for a while, oil becomes very expensive. Potentially, you get a global recession. But it's not going to be huge, right? Again, supply shocks you can adjust to them. You get more capacity out of the places that still can pump oil out, and people demand less of whatever it is that you're doing, and things rebalance until the oil comes back online. That would be my guess. It would be bad, though. It won't be good. Harrison, if you could just say one thing to every single person who argues that this is not America's war, what would it be? I don't know, one thing. They killed Americans and intend to kill many, many more. They're dedicated to that. And they need to be stopped. Something like that. Newly Dan, what razor do you use for shaving? I use an electric razor. What do you call it? Phillips. I think it's a Phillips. I've used the same basic razor since I was 16. The 3-headed electric razor. Michael, how is it even possible we can lose the Iran war? The IRGC is so pathetic. Because we don't have the will to fight it properly, and we haven't developed, or we're not willing to execute the appropriate strategies. We didn't think in advance about what would be needed. But there's no reason in the world we should lose this. And we won't lose it, but there's no reason in the world we should even have a stalemate with them. Vikram, are you surprised at the personal level at the resilience of the Iranian regime? A little bit, yeah. I mean, yes, they have survived more than I thought they would. I thought by now they'd be fighting. And I think the thing that the reason is, and really it's one thing, it's the Straits of Hormuz. It's the fact that the U.S. didn't have a plan, didn't prepare for it, didn't execute, didn't make sure it was open, didn't make sure to keep it open, and give them a huge bolster to their confidence, give them kind of the confidence to keep going because they've got this massive trump card over Trump. That, I think, is the cause of it. But yes, they've held out more than I expected. But again, I thought Trump would have a plan. Not Trump, the Pentagon would have a plan. And maybe they had a plan, but they didn't implement it. They haven't executed it. They haven't even started to execute on it. I mean, they're starting now. It's pathetic. All right, guys. I will see you in a couple of hours, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, with Amish. Don't forget to join us. It's going to be a fabulous show. Amish is really, really, really smart and incredibly knowledgeable. And the topic is super interesting. So join us, and I'll see you then. Bye, everybody. Have a great